Hello Moogles, it's the Schwantz27 here, and we're now 2/3 done with the Flashback Battle Royale event, and for week 6, it was the Battlegrounds Zozo flag set that our runners had to contend with. Characters in their equipment pools not appearing what they seem, 0 GP sellback shops, 5% chances of monster in a box chests, with random drops and steals from enemies, along with random ability scaling, as well as normalize and distort, definitely kept our runners on their toes in this one. We started with Magitech Natural Magic Setzer, portrayed by Edgar Sprite, and Morph Strago, cosplaying as Setzer. And since our Kefka Tower skip required finding 9 characters plus Strago, we already had half of our requirements right out of the gate. At our free check, Slot Lock appearing as Celeste was at the Engine Inn, which meant we could go grab the choice of Raiden or Fixed Dice from the weapon shop, but remember, even though we had Setzer, he wasn't guaranteed to use that Fixed Dice as well as an 8 Battle Curse Shield. Taking off the Moogle Charm in South Figaro Basement, we eventually ran into a formation that had enemies dropping a pair of experience eggs, which went nicely with the Illumina for, quote, Setzer. Heading over to the South Figaro Cave, we found Lure Mog in a ninja costume, and Welk dropping a Genji shield. A super cheap 1400 GP to Zen Thief Cat Hood would definitely help out with the funny money problem that we were having. After going back to World of Balance North for some earrings that we couldn't afford earlier, we peeked a realm in Umaro's cave on our way up to Lone Wolf, holding a choice of Economizer or Go-Go in a Moogle suit. Then doubling back to the Narsh battle had our Umaro reward looking like Sabin, so we already knew where 7 characters were before we even got more than a single Esper. Goddess at Moogle Defense could have been a huge problem had it not been for Ice Rod drops from the wolves guarding her through the maze, which made short work of this difficult boss for Zone Seek. Due to the Force Party reform, it was down to 1 character for a shot through the Zone Eater cave, since our checks were looking pretty awful at this point with the characters that we had, and in a weird quirk of the flag set, a Go-Go sprite was at the end, but it was really Capture Realm. Search Disguise is an easy boss to Rappa for an Aegis shield. Stopping in Thamasa, since it was close to Zone Eater, had a random trap chest that dropped 3 offerings. We just needed a weapon to use them with if we didn't pick the Fixed Dice earlier. Shimmying onwards to Ebbets Rock was Seraphim, who had Fire 2 and 3 to finally get our magic users online, at least other than, quote, Edgar, using Natural Magic Quake when we had Float from our first shiny stone. A second Illumina was found in Owzer's mansion, as well as Blitz Tools Gao, who looked like Mr. Thou. Daryl's Tomb was our closest check, and that yielded Stray to bring our Esper count within half of our character count. Esper Mountain lived up to its name with Bismarck, the other side of the Serpent Trench was Crusader, and it was now that I decided to head up to World of Ruin North to grab my 9th character for Skip to open up some more checks, had you not gone to Phoenix Cave to get Cyan. The Gold Dragon dropped an Economizer, Tritok Cliff had Ifrit, and the aforementioned Realm, who was actually Celeste with Throw, as well as a Valiant Knife in a chest conveniently located on the way to the boss. The South Figaro prisoner spot was an unnecessary Sword Tech Shadow, who had green hair in this seed, but at least that gave us more quick options in case Magitech Factory didn't pan out. However, this time around we went 2 for 2 in terms of Espers getting go mode after a vanilla number 24 fight, or not quite, since we still had to set the Zozo clock in this one, which had a time of 10:40:10. Even though we've been through a lot already, this seed was not over with yet, as Kefka Tower had Dataluma that yeeted stuff at us at the Guardian spot, Kefka coming down from his monument to non-existence to delay us only slightly before giving us the real difficulty of the seed. Chatternook on one side and Doomgaze on another with random ability scaling gets very scary, as our runners found out. Even passing around the Paladin shield couldn't guarantee your safety here. After getting through that gauntlet, there was still trepidation with even a pair of Illuminas, a Valiant Knife offering build, potential Bum Rush on Gao or Go-Go or Throw-Go with Celeste's ability, and Tre Fuego for Magic Casters for the offense, X-Zone for instant death, Sourmouth if you kept your lore user in your party for mute on Magic, but the real question mark was Tier 3 doing over 3,000 damage per person with Merton, which obliterated 3 of the 4 party members of my party here, but thankfully we recovered, only losing the Bum Rush user on my way to taking down Kefka with a time of 1:31:24, just 8 seconds behind the winner for this week, Gar. Meanwhile, in Memory Lane, we had Lore Realm pretending to be her dad, and Soritek Gao as a gambling Setzer to start, finding a couple of Dragon Horns and Returners in World of Balance South Figaro, as well as an Experience Egg in a World of Ruin South Figaro barrel. Taking off the Moogle Charm in South Figaro Cave for grinding, had Ice Shield drops from a cephalopod looking thing, earrings from the 5x Chicken Lip fight, and red jackets from Muse to gear up your party in lieu of looking too hard in shops. Our free check at the College Inn was an Esper and was off to Owzer's Mansion, where there was apparently yet another Illumina, but in this seed it was a drop from an encounter versus in a chest. At the end, it was a soldier painting with an experience egg after a Three Stooges fight, and we're glad we learned Ice too. A vanilla Doom Gaze rewarded us with Ifrit, and it was northwards to Daryl's Tomb, where the boss from Owzer's Mansion migrated, giving a reward of Runic Shadow and a Kupo costume, who was the character requirement for the Kefka Tower skip. It was off to the floating continent where forced encounters had Thunder Shield drops, and we got a Cranes fight that had a proper background before yielding to Goddess. However, getting past that was Natural Magic Morph Strago, who looked like Terra. The middle was a Genji glove for our double Illumina build, and Jump Mog had on a Sasquatch outfit at the end. Continuing to do more 3-part checks, the World of Balance Nourish Loop gave a choice between Rage Lock as a Samurai or an Atma weapon for later at Lone Wolf. Phantom from the Nourish Battle and Moogle Defense had us rescuing Go-Go. Now was the time to knock out a couple of free checks at Gal Manor, giving Kieran in the Nourish Weapon Shop a choice between Raiden again and a Behemoth suit to give us 2 more quick Espers. Velt Cave peaked Torado on the ground, and that put us in Thamasa, which meant a quick detour into the Casa del Fuego, where Pipsqueaks dropped Genji gloves and a giant robot in the burning house guarded Phoenix. Rounding out those close checks gave Fenrir at Ebbets Rock for calmness protection, and Celeste being portrayed by a grandpa at the end of the Zone Eater Cave. Esper Mountain gave Bahamut for Esper requirements, but we only needed one more character at this point for Kefka Tower skip, so J. Brun TR went searching in the South Figaro prisoner spot, where Edgar could be found looking a little bit like Setzer, and setting the Zozo clock to the vanilla 61050 unlocked the final boss. Similar to the main seed, Narsh Kefka was one of the 4 bosses, along with Rexol, Tunnel Armor, and finally Tritok on the right side of Kefka's tower, which would be trouble if you didn't have the correct party, since dual-wielding Illuminas wasn't going to thaw out this frozen chicken. Lots of big swords, a Valiant Knife user with Mog, Tier 3 Elemental Magic, a Stray Cat Rage user, and our starting Arrow on Lore, or Grand Train if one of the bosses randomly happened to cast it later with ability scaling, combined with Fenrir, Break, and Raiden to take care of everything but magic on Tier 2. However, Merton was doing nearly 4,000 damage to the party for Tier 3, so it put those elemental protections that we got from very early grind fights into full display here. Eventually, the Clown went down at 143.22, with J. Brun TR coming out on top of Memory Lane, and they will join the top 15 for next week's flag set, the Kefka Grand Prix Finals. For this particular flag set, Kefka Unlock requires 7 characters, 10 Espers, and 5 unscaled dragons with a lock plus 2 randos to start. This flag set will give you a healthy starting purse of 500,000 GP. However, there won't be any GP available from enemies, so the only way to get some cash is to loot and sell things. Thankfully, both chests and shops are 100% random. I'd gravitate towards finding some goodies in shops and then looting to supplement for cash. Although enemies won't give any GP, you'll get 10 times the XP multiplier. However, it will be split amongst party members, so a party of 3 will actually get slightly higher than the standard unsplit 3 times multiplier, but with a full party, you'll get a slight 2.5 times nerf. These enemies will also be extremely difficult right out of the gate with plus 10 levels across the board and scaling at a 3 times characters plus Espers plus dragons with a maximum of 99. So before you do anything, they'll be on level 19. Bosses are also random with possible duplicates instead of shuffled. Spells are random tiered on Espers, but they do have the original MP costs, including Ultima, which has a low likelihood of showing up. However, with a lock start, it might be worth checking the curse shield number of battles, even if it's a wide 1 to 32 range, since you're going to have to take some grind fights unless you find some Super Balls in shops just to catch up with scaling. If we get lucky with a Lore or Dance or Rage user, we have our pick of all of the known abilities there. This is going to be a seed that can get out of control very quickly with no real cap on the maximum enemy level. However, smart early gameplay will definitely help snowball your levels to be huge by the end, especially with requiring 5 dragons that are 10 more levels higher than the vanilla game. If you instead want to experience one of the most infamous seeds in FF6 Worlds Collide history, check out the Seed of the Week, where it's Kefka Grand Prix Week 6, which is still talked about to this day, even several years after the event. I have seen what happens in it, but maybe I'll give it a go for myself, since I don't know if I've ever actually played it, and you should too. I've been the Schwantz27. Until next time.